Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at eclipses, starting with lunar and moving on to solar, of course. They are both connected phenomena. They're both about the moon either blocking out the sun or being blocked from the sun by the earth. So a lunar eclipse is when the moon moves into our shadow. We already had a lunar eclipse, a partial lunar eclipse, visible from Ireland at the end of October. But we're going to move forward a couple of years out to March 2025 so that we can take a look at the next total lunar eclipse. This is the very next total lunar eclipse. It just so happens that it is visible in Ireland, and this isn't always the case. So we're going to we'll go to the 13th here. It will be happening on the 14th, but for us it will be happening very, very early in the morning, very, very close to sunrise. We only get lunar eclipses when the moon is full. So the moon has to be on the opposite side of the Earth to the sun. That's how it lines up with the Earth and the Earth's shadow. So we're here on the night of the full moon. Let's zoom in here so we can see that the moon is nice and full. There we go. I will slow down a little as we start coming up to the correct time because the moon will begin to move into our shadow. So we'll start by seeing just a little bit of a sort of a bluish color, a bluish gray creeping onto the side of the moon, and that will be followed by the real shadow, the reddish color. So here we go, and this is about halfway through the total lunar eclipse. It will be a total lunar eclipse. The Earth's shadow will completely cover the moon. We can see a little bit of shadow there where it has that kind of a grayishy color, but the red color is what we're really looking for. A total lunar eclipse is often called a blood moon or a red moon because of this lovely red color, which comes from the sun's light refracting through the Earth's atmosphere. Now, we're seeing quite a lot of the eclipse here, but unfortunately, we won't quite get to watch the whole thing through. Here come the bushes blocking out the moon. Now, if you are at the coast, particularly if you're at the western coast, Western Kerry, Galway, that kind of area, you will get to see a little bit more of it. But we're not quite in the perfect position to see all of this eclipse here in Ireland. It is a total lunar eclipse. We are seeing part of a total lunar eclipse rather than part of a partial or all of a partial. But the whole thing is, of course, what we'd really like to see. Now, we're seeing the moon here set over towards the west, so if we were further west, we would get to see a little bit more of this. Now, all across the United States, really, all across the Americas, north and south, you're going to get to see a fair chunk of this eclipse, but one of the best places to see it is roughly around the Galapagos Islands, just off the coast of South America. So Galapagos Islands are in there. We're a little bit further west, again, a little bit closer to the international dateline. We're very close to the equator here, so we'll have to zoom in on the moon again. And here we go. So from this location, closer to the Galapagos, we'll get to see the moon completely enter the Earth's shadow, getting this lovely red color across its entire surface. For quite a while, lunar eclipses can last quite a long time. So this will be running from about 6 until about 2 or 3 o'clock. So we're seeing it here ending there at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 14th for us, this is Universal Standard Time or Universal Coordinated Time. So this wouldn't be the local time in the Galapagos Islands. So we can see this lovely red color. That is a total lunar eclipse. During a partial lunar eclipse, we won't get to see more of the moon covered than, something like this. You can have a partial lunar eclipse that covers 90% of the moon or only 10% of the moon. So there is a good deal of variety. This total lunar eclipse will be visible from Ireland, but we won't get to see all of it. We won't get to see the totality, the part where the moon is completely in our shadow. Before we take a look at solar eclipses, there is something else really nice that Stellarium lets you do. As well as traveling around the world, it lets you travel around the solar system. So we are going to take a look at this lunar eclipse from the surface of the moon. So we're going to hop over here, definitely on the day side, pretty close to the moon's equator. And we're just going to have a quick look for the Earth and the Sun. there they are. So if you were standing on the moon looking in the direction of the sun during a lunar eclipse from the Earth, you would get a solar eclipse on the moon. And it looks very different to a solar eclipse here on Earth. From the perspective of the moon, the Earth takes up a bigger area of the sky than the sun. From here on Earth, the moon and the sun look almost the exact same size, so they fit together really, really well. What we would see if we were on the moon would be the Earth blocking out the sun for several seconds. You wouldn't really get to see the lovely corona of the sun, those lovely bright threads that appear to stick out from the side if you see a solar eclipse here on Earth, because the Earth is blocking so much more of the area where we would be seeing the sun. So these last a lot longer than a solar eclipse would here on Earth. We don't often get a solar eclipse longer than about 7 minutes from any given location on the Earth here. Lunar eclipses last a lot longer because the moon is in our shadow for a lot longer. Things are in just slightly different, relative positions. So that is a lunar eclipse. For the next solar eclipse, well, the next solar eclipse that we're going to have on Earth is mostly going to be visible from North America. We won't get a very good view of it from here in Ireland. So we're going to travel to just the very northern part of Mexico here, and we're going to go back in time from 2025, a little bit closer to today, back to 2024. So this is only next year. So if you are a lover of eclipses, we're looking for the 8th of April here. If you are a lover of eclipses, an umbraphile, somebody who loves the shadow, you can travel to eclipses. Even though eclipses are reasonably rare from any given location on Earth, there is hundreds of eclipses, hundreds of lunar eclipses and several solar eclipses every century. So if you're willing to travel around, occasionally you might have to travel to Antarctica or the Arctic to catch an eclipse. But if you are willing to travel around, you can see many more eclipses in your lifetime than just one. You can see several solar eclipses and many lunar eclipses, especially if you're willing to travel. So here we are coming up to the totality of the solar eclipse visible from the United States. Now, if we take a close look at the eclipse happening, we'll be able to get an idea of how much of the sun is getting blocked and where things are relative to each other. So we'll zoom in here. There's the moon and the sun. We'll come back just a little bit. And it doesn't look like it's getting perfectly blocked out for me. We can see a little bit of the sun there just cresting over the top of the moon. So we're seeing the sun peeking out on the northern side of the moon. So we should move a little bit further south to bring ourselves more directly in line with this shadow to see this eclipse just a little bit better. Now, of course, this isn't something we can really do in real life. You can't just take a look, judge your angles, and travel hundreds of kilometers south. That was maybe a little bit too far to the south there. This isn't something you can do in real life, but luckily Stellarium allows you to do this to figure out exactly where you'd get the best view. So here we go. This should be pretty much the perfect place to watch the eclipse. There we go. That is totality. So this is what we're looking for when we're looking for a total solar eclipse. The moon just perfectly blocking out the disk shape of the sun, leaving us with this lovely fiery corona. Corona being the Latin for crown. This crown of ejections from the sun, these solar flares, coronal mass ejections sticking out from the edges of the sun here. And we can kind of see the shape of the sun's magnetic field. If you imagine a bunch of iron filings being controlled by a magnet, you get this kind of curving out shape from the poles, and we're seeing that here as well. Of course, the sun's plasma is affected and sort of controlled by its magnetic field. So it's a solar eclipse, so it's not going to last as long, and it will mostly be visible across North America. But of course, we took a look at a lunar eclipse from the perspective of the moon. We're going to take a look at a solar eclipse from the perspective of the moon as well, because it looks cool. And this isn't something that a lot of us will get a chance to see unless you are in the very lucky position to be an astronaut on the moon. That's the wrong moon. If you are an astronaut on the moon during an eclipse, that's a tough thing to orchestrate. That's a tough thing to make happen. So here we are. We're on the moon. I know it looks like there's grass all around us, but that is the default background that stellarium gives. We're not really surrounded by grass when we're on the moon. And here we are taking a look at the Earth. And there is that shadow. So that is the shadow of the moon falling on the Earth. And as the moon moves and the Earth turns, we can see that shadow drifting across the planet. So it's a lunar eclipse, or this solar eclipse will be visible over a reasonably large area, but a lot of that area will be the Pacific Ocean. So we can see here, just as the moon's shadow crosses onto the disk of the Earth, this is pretty close to New Zealand and the edge of Australia. And as we move forward, it will cross across the Pacific, come up into sort of the Gulf of California area there, across Mexico into the United States, and then off the other side. You will see a little bit of it in some parts of Canada as well, just at the end. And I think some places in Europe might luckily catch the edge of it, but it isn't going to look quite as fantastic for us as it would do if you were, well, right there, right in the umbra. That's the darkest part of the shadow, and we can see this fainter penumbra coming out around the sides as well. So that's the very next solar eclipse, the next one we're going to get here on planet Earth, and the next lunar eclipse. If we want the next solar eclipse that is visible from Ireland, well, we're going to have to go a lot further into the future. Luckily, I have a list of the times and dates for a few eclipses here next to me, so I can bring up, I think it's September. Yeah, the 23rd of September is our next total lunar eclipse in 2090. So we are going to have to wait quite a while for this one. If you are waiting around for the next solar eclipse, if you don't want to wait until 2090, I absolutely wouldn't blame you for going to the United States or to Mexico to see the very next solar eclipse that's going to happen, which is only in 2024. So we don't have to wait too long for the very next solar eclipse, but we're going to have to wait ages and ages for the next solar eclipse that's going to be visible from here in Ireland. And it certainly feels like ages and ages. 2090 sounds very, very far away. Let's get ourselves back to Cork here. There we go. And we'll look back up into the sky, so we're not looking at the sun, and we'll bring ourselves around to daytime, so we get to see the solar eclipse. Of course, it has to be daytime for us to see the solar eclipse. We don't get to see solar eclipses at nighttime. So that looks like the sun just set. Yep, and we're facing into the north. So let's turn around here to see the sun, and we can see that the moon is very, very close to it. And as we move forward here, just coming up to sunset for us, we're going to have the moon just about blocking out the sun, and we're getting to see a little bit of a corona there. Now, we are looking at this from pretty north Cork. This is about 51 degrees north. If we bring ourselves down to 52 degrees north, or even we'll say 52 for now, see if that makes things just a little bit better. This would be a little bit closer to Cork City. No, that's brought it out again. Well, eclipses are tricky things to spot. We might have to be a little off the southern coast. I know that in places like Waterville and Skibbereen, you're going to have a slightly better view than we would right here in Cork City. Let's try that, see if that's a little bit better. Nope, not by much. So this will be a total solar eclipse, but of course, we are looking very, very far into the future here. This is, as I said, 2090. There we go. That's pretty close to totality. We can see the corona here from slightly off the southern coast of Cork. So if you have a boat and you're willing to go down into the English Channel, that should give you a slightly better view. But of course, that's 2090. That's way, way, way in the future, bringing ourselves a bit closer back to the modern day. These are the upcoming eclipses. I really hope you get to see the next total lunar eclipse from here in Ireland, even though we only get to see part of the total. If you're lucky, maybe you'll be able to make it to the Galapagos Islands instead. I'm sure that would give you a fantastic, fantastic view. But if you're here in Ireland, you at least get to see a little bit of it at sunset. And for the next solar eclipse, If you really want to see the solar eclipse, I'd recommend heading to America for April 2024. We'll be waiting a long time to see ours here in Ireland in 2090. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different from a lot of the other videos on this channel, dealing more with a topic rather than what we can see in the sky. There will be more videos like this in the future. So if you liked it, please do like it so that myself and YouTube both know that you liked the video. And if you really liked it and like this kind of content, then do subscribe to my channel and take a look at my website, queebeanscontent.ie. Now, thank you for staying with me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.